Hey, welcome into the Stinkin Truth Podcast. Mark Schlereth alongside my co-host, Mike Evans. We thank you so much for tuning in. You guys have done a great job of that. Make sure you subscribe, share it with your friends if you like it. If you don't like it, keep your mouth freaking shut, all right? That's the rules here that we play by. Mike, how are you, buddy?
I'm great. I'm curious to see what you think about what's been going on with the current running back situation in the NFL. Saquon Barkley says he's not likely going to sign his franchise tag as the Giants get their program underway.
Right.
Is that how concerned should Giant fan be about this?
Well, I mean, listen, that position, gosh, I mean, I came into the league, that position was so much different. Like the value of that position was so much different than it is now. And I understand, the Giants franchising him, but I also understand not wanting to pay a guy and hamstring your kind of cap based upon the longevity of those guys. And, obviously Saquon Barkley tore his ACL, in his second season, then his third season. Like he bounced back last year in his fourth season. I think it's his fourth season, but he was phenomenal last year. But it really took him, all that time after the surgery and then a full season before he really became Saquon Barkley again. And he was great last year, but very interesting with the New York Giants, how much of that offense sits on the shoulders of Saquon Barkley. And, kind of a funny story, doing a Giants game early in the season. And Brian Dable's just one of the great dudes in football. He's just like one of those guys you root for because he's just brutally honest and he is who he is and he's just a good dude. And so the narrative out there from the general media in New York was halftime adjustments. Man, this squad is so good and Brian Dable is so good and Mike Kafka is so good at the adjustments. Like they make so many in-game adjustments and it's second to none the way they're doing that. And so I'm in a meeting with Brian Dable and I just am like, all right, I've read all these articles, right? And, I've watched all the film and I'm like, give me the scoop. What is it that makes you guys so good at these adjustments that you make at halftime or in-game? And then he goes, I call down to Mike Kafka and I go, give it to 26. Because that's the only adjustment I make is how many more times can 26 touch it? Both running the ball and passing the ball. So we don't make any adjustments. Our adjustment is hand it to 26 more. Like that's the whole game. Like it's a pretty simple game. I always say one of the things that fascinates me about football is the juxtaposition of complexity and simplicity. It's a simple game. It's a complex game that's really simple. And, when you give it to your best player and you let him wear down a defense, it's amazing how many other things open up, how the quarterback run opens up, how the option, the ability to run play action opens up and all those things. And so Dable keeps it very simple for his players, but that offense is so tilted. That offense is so dependent on number 26 that he's a vital cog to making that thing go.
So I think I speak for every fantasy football player out there, the frustration at times about the way that running backs are used and the way that teams use their running back by committee and everything. What has changed? Why has it changed? Because when you played, there was a badge of honor to the idea of the workhorse bell cow running back, the guy that was out there getting 25, 30 carries per game, the idea that he doesn't really warm up until he gets to like 18 carries. Why has the league gone away from that to the point where these running backs really, it does feel like they're completely devalued?
Yeah, they have been, and they do take a beating. Like all that stuff is true. Part of it is just the way, part of it is just the way we run offense. Like in my time in the NFL, and Washington were a little bit different because Washington was a three-wide set, before three wides became kind of the standard operating set. Like we were one-back offense a lot. We had great blocking tight ends and things of that nature. And if we wanted to get into two backs, we didn't have a fullback. We had what we called an H-back, which was a big burly tight end. Ron Middleton was kind of one of our big H-backs. Terry Orr was a big H-back. Donnie Warren was a real Y on the end of the line of scrimmage tight end. But the base personnel groups in my time was 21 was the base, meaning 2 running backs. You had a tailback and a fullback and a tight end. And so, obviously you have 5 eligibles. So 21 personnel means 2 backs, fullback, halfback, like I said, tight end. So that's 3. So then you have 2 wide receivers, right? All equals 5. Now the base personnel group is 11. So you got 1 back, you got 1 tight end, and 3 wide receivers. So it spreads it out a little bit more because you're throwing the ball with so much more frequency. Now I have to have a guy that can do everything. And they just don't make those guys because I think it's become so much more individualized from the college game to the pro game that now they have that, hey, this guy's really good at this and this guy's really good at that, but we need a guy that can catch the ball in the backfield. We need a guy that's a good blitz pickup guy. And so now it's become more about, well, this guy's really good at this and this guy's really good at this and this guy's really good at this, and you're not producing as many 3-down backs. Sometimes you're not producing guys that can really just, pick a hole and understand the importance of as Mike Tomlin once told me, not every meal's a buffet, right? Sometimes you got to understand you're putting your foot in the ground and going getting us a nasty 4. And if you have that mentality and you have that guy that can do that, oftentimes the guy that can give you the nasty 4 isn't good at catching the ball in the backfield. So it's just become much more of an individualized sport, if you will. And I think that's why you see that change. But Saquon is one of those dudes that is that 3-down back that can give you that, burst, that can give you the nastiness, that can, they can make the big play in the running game and can catch the ball in the backfield.
Even though I was talking about how the running back position seems to be devalued, there is a lot of value still out there with some running backs.
Sure.
That the longer we go on, the more that you're going to be able to get some of these guys on really team-friendly deals. You're talking Zeke Elliott, Leonard Fournette, Kareem Hunt, Jerick McKinnon.
Right, yeah.
These guys are all out there. Latavius Murray.
Right.
I mean, there are a lot of running backs out there that maybe instead of looking to the draft for a running back, there's some good veteran value out there.
Yeah.
Guys with proven resumes.
I think one of the things you look at, and this is one of the ways things have changed, and it's changed this way with a veteran quarterback like Matt Ryan's out there. And, is anybody going to bring him in during this time of the year? No, probably not. But you see what you have during the OTA and minicamp kind of portion of football. And I think the same goes for these running backs. We know that Zeke has a skill set, right? We know that a guy like Leonard Fournette has a certain skill set. We know what those guys are. And those guys, because they've got some wear and tear and, they've got all that stuff, those guys are going to probably be around. Latavius Murray is going to probably be around for a while. So why wouldn't we groom the young guys that we have on our roster right now, maybe go out and draft a guy, and you see the kind of impact that Isaiah Pacheco had as a 7th rounder for Kansas City. Go draft a guy, and let's see if we can develop one of these guys. And guess what? If we decide that we're a little thin there, we pick them up after the last cut, first week of the season. We pick them up, put them on our roster, and now we don't have to guarantee the entirety of the season, right? We don't have to guarantee their salaries for the entirety of the season. So I think part of that is just the numbers game and managing your cap. So I think there's a lot of that that's going on right now in this portion of the NFL season.
So you got teams that are going to be opening up their offseason programs here. The Broncos, because they have a new coach and Sean Payton, have been able to get an early start on things. And it's already been interesting for guys like us who've been covering the Broncos for a long time, how different it is because Peyton's come in and really it's like a news blackout. They've begun their offseason conditioning program. No press conferences, no interviews with the free agents that they signed. Mike McGlinchey, Zach Allen, new coaching staff. Vance Joseph is back as the defensive coordinator. We haven't heard from him. And there's been some debate about, is this the right way to do things? Or what about the idea that as a fan base, you want information, you want to be able to meet the new players, and Peyton is shutting all that down.
Right. And I've heard the narrative that, it's narcissistic. It's all about Sean Payton. It's all, which to me is a bunch of baloney. Like, this has been a clown show for 7 years. Just an absolute clown show. And now an adult comes into the organization and takes over and says, we are no longer going to operate like a clown show. We're going to operate like professionals. The very first press conference, and you remember it because you were there just like I was, very first press conference Sean Payton had, he talked about what we need right now is more anonymous donors. That's what we need. And I don't need TikTok videos. I don't need Instagram videos. I don't need videos of you guys working out. I need you just to do the work. Not get credit for it, on social media platforms. I just need you to do the work. And this is not about promoting ourselves, and it's not about press conferences. This is about coming in and working together, challenging one another, having that competition internally, and getting better as a football team. It's about building the culture. And I think one of the coolest things that happened to me this year as I've traveled around the NFL doing games is I was doing a game late in the season in New Orleans. And so, you come in and you have a time, you meet with everybody, like you come in early, you put your bags down, and you got the room where you're going to do these interviews with the players and the coaches, right? And I think we did a couple interviews with coaches before practice, and then we had a couple of players after practice and that type of thing. So we do a couple of interviews, bam, we knock them out. And we go down, we have lunch, and it's a great lunch, and then we walk into the lunchroom in New Orleans. It's connected to a big indoor practice facility where they practice a bunch. So we walk in there, and I'm standing on the sideline, I'm watching, and one of the things I'm always looking for is like, okay, they're in a 1st and 10 period. Okay, what personnel groups are they in 1st and 10? Are they 2 back? Are they 1 back? Are they what are we looking at here? Because they've got a scout defense out there, right? So I'm like, okay, they're in this. They think they're going to get this. They're attacking this. Whatever, right? It's red zone. Okay, now they're in the red zone. What are they gonna do? So I'm watching this, and a guy saunters up to me that's been a part of the organization for I've known this guy for 25 years, and he comes sauntering up for me, and we just start shooting the breeze, like, what do you think? How's it going? Blah blah blah. So we start talking about the football team, and we're just kind of shooting the breeze about the Saints in general, kind of where they are right now. And he goes, you know what the biggest problem with this football team now? He says this to me.
Unsolicited.
Unsolicited. Yeah. And so now I'm all ears, right? Like, no, I don't know what the biggest problem is.
Do tell.
Yes. And he said, Sean Payton walked out of this organization, and the fear walked out with him. And I was like, wow, that's profound. Because, and I've said this on this podcast before, the 2 types of fear, the biblical fear, which is awesome reverence and respect, and just straight up fear. If I don't do my job, I'm going to get fired. And the bigger part that this particular individual was making, the biggest point is it's not just the players. That's part of it. More importantly, it's the coaches. There isn't that fear that I'm walking on eggshells upstairs, and if I don't do it the right way, and if my players aren't performing, that's a direct reflection on you as a coach. And, there is that lack of almost this sigh of relief. He walked out the door, and all the coaches went,
It's like the substitute teacher coming in for the day. Right. Everyone relaxes.
Right. And so that's a big aspect of football or just any organization, I think. There's got to be consequences if you don't get your job done.
And why is the idea of the football dictator carry with it such negative connotation for some? Because I look around the NFL, I look at some of the most successful models. Bill Belichick's a dictator. John Harbaugh
Sure.
I'm sure there's that same kind of fear in the Baltimore building. I'm sure you can rattle off. You've been in all these buildings around the NFL. I'm sure you can name at least 6, 8 teams where you have that kind of a feel. And something tells me it probably are a lot of the successful teams.
Right.
Right?
There is no question about that. Even when I was here in Denver playing, and Mike Shanahan, there was no question who was in charge, who was running the organization, who had his fingers, and his fingerprints on every aspect of the organization, right down to what coffee we drank in the morning. Like that was all. And you know how many times I had this kind of relationship with Mike where I could go up to his office and say, "Hey, Mike, I was thinking about something," right? And how many times coaches would come up to me and say, "Hey, man, Mike's lost his mind. Can you go talk to him about this, or can you go talk to him about that?"
They were afraid to talk to him.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. Yeah, oh, absolutely. Hey, dude, stink, come here. Yeah, what's up? Can you go talk to Mike? He's yeah, schedule, whatever it was, right? Whatever it was. And that was part of the organizational structure. And, we're just such a mamby-pamby society. We get we can't offend anybody and, all this garbage, right? And there's got to be, the most regal person on the planet, the most regal person that I've ever been involved with, guy that I had just so much respect for, Joe Gibbs. Just so much respect for. Was in charge like that. And he would without equivocation. Is that the right word? Is that a word?
Yeah, sure.
It's close enough. Without hesitation, he would fire your ass without even thinking about it if you didn't do your job, as a coach or as a player. And hey, no hard feelings. You're not good enough. And nothing. If I can ever help you in any other fashion, any other facet of life, you don't hesitate. And meant it, and was all about it. But don't do your job. Guess what? You don't get to play here anymore.
Okay, you've been to Pittsburgh. You referenced Mike Tomlin. Is there a sense of fear in the Pittsburgh building? Because and the reason I bring up Tomlin specifically is because he's oftentimes referenced as the new age type of coach who's a player's coach. But there's a level, there's a point where being a player's coach is still, there's fear there, and there's no doubt who's in charge.
Listen, man, I've been at practice. That dude is large and in charge, and there's a level on a Friday of competition going on within that organization where it's palpable.
Pete Carroll in Seattle, same thing.
Yeah. The level of competition. So there's all that.
Moral of the story is, it's a good thing.
It is a great thing. And just real quick, addressing the claims of narcissism. And I've told you this before. I've never told this on this podcast. I go way back with Sean Payton. Okay, so I'm probably biased to a degree, but I go way back. He had me come into the Saints all the way back in 2010 to speak to the team. So I did that. We've had this relationship ever since. I'm out in New Orleans because my son is pitching at AAA ball. I think he's with Miami. He's playing against this New Orleans team. I think they were the Baby Cakes at the time, whatever they were, which is whatever, kind of strange. But anyhow, so I'm there and it's during training camp, and so I call Sean. I go, "Hey man, I'm in town. Can I swing by practice?" "Oh yeah. Come on." Get in practice. I show up the facility. Bam, they let me in. Sean meets me. So, and they're just walking out to practice field of stretch. He goes, "Let me show you some stuff." Walks me through the facility, shows me, "Hey, this year, this is what we did. We redid the lockers, and look at these." He's showing me the lockers and how they have these shoulder pad dryers. It's really humid in New Orleans, so you put your shoulder pads on here, and it dries, so they're not wet for the next practice. All this, all these bells and whistles, right? And this locker room is beautiful. It's just beautifully done, and walks me, into the training facility, and they've got, new hydrotherapy unit. We did this hydrotherapy unit last offseason, and we did this cryovac Unit 2 last offseason. So every year when my players come back, they've got something to look forward to because it's all about the players and stuff. And then we go upstairs. He goes, come upstairs. Let's go grab a cup of coffee before we go back outside, whatever. Go upstairs. It was the same damn carpet that was there in 2010. This is probably 2018 that I was 8 years later. That carpet hasn't been changed since the 70s. The coaches' offices are like they're garbage. His office, tiny little office. And it's all about serving the players. So then we go back down. And we come out of practice and they're just, starting up practice. And before he goes and does his coaching, he says, hey, he stops me and goes, if there's anything that you see that you don't think we're doing correctly, or you don't think he's being coached correctly, or you think there's a better way to do it, he goes, stop the drill and get involved. Oh, there's a narcissist, right? Stop the drill and get involved. And I mean, that's how they operated down there in New Orleans. And like you just got to have a ton of confidence in what you're doing to be able to say to somebody like me, hey, if you see something that you think we could do better, don't hesitate to step on the coach's toes. Like most guys are so afraid of you circumventing their authority, right? You emasculating them in front of players. But there's so much certainty and confidence and belief in what they're doing that what it conveys to their players is, hey man, we want to do what's best for you. We want you guys to have success. And if there's a different way to do it and it's better than the way we're doing it, let's do it that way.
Good stuff. Great stuff. Well, we're 2 weeks away from the draft. NFL draft is coming up.
Yeah.
And it's a crazy time. It's a fun time. And it, as always, tends to revolve around the quarterbacks. And this looks like it's going to be a bumper crop of quarterbacks. We could have upwards of 5 quarterbacks go in the first round, 4 maybe go in the top 10. When it comes to the philosophy out there that teams embrace when it comes to drafting quarterbacks, do you agree with it?
In that, just pick a quarterback, any quarterback, or you got to have a.
There seems to be that mentality of, hey, listen, we need a quarterback. These are the ones that are expected to go in the first round. Let's get one.
Right. Well, part of that is, it sells hope, right? We kick the can down the road, as you always say. It sells hope. Hey, man, everybody gets excited about the new quarterback, even if the guy can't play a lick. And then the next thing you know, Baker Mayfield's on his 4th team. And that's what we're selling. And, you hope to catch lightning in a bottle. And what it ends up doing is it ends up making teams draft 2nd and 3rd round talent in the 4th round or in the 1st round. That's what it ends up doing. And, it all came about in the last collective bargaining agreement. This was truly what it was all about, was that whole rookie wage scale was truly about, let's be able to just draft quarterbacks, whoever comes out, let's just draft them, create that buzz, create that excitement, but it doesn't hamstring our franchise for the next 10 years because we don't have to pay them the way we used to have to pay them. And so, obviously, it allows you to check whatever boxes you need to check without real accountability. And so do I like what's happened? No. Do I understand it? Do I get it? Yeah. You're going to go, think about that 2018, that 2018 draft of quarterbacks was being compared at the time to the 83 class that produced Elway and Marino and Jim Kelly and
Todd Blackledge,
right,
Pat O'Brien, Tony Eason.
Yeah, Tony Eason. Who was the Jets guy? It was
wasn't it Pat
No, it wasn't Pat.
Ken O'Brien.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
So like it was being compared to that. Now look at it. Mm-hmm. Josh Rosen's on his 17th team. You got Baker Mayfield literally on his 4th team now. Sam Darnold is now going to be a career. He's in San Francisco, but come on, you've played 60 games, right? You are what you are. You're a backup. Obviously, Josh Allen has thrived, as has Lamar Jackson. But number 1 overall pick, number 3 overall pick, number 9 overall pick are all flamed out. Mm-hmm. And so it just is it creates this opportunity to not crush your franchise when you choose unwisely.
But the counter argument to that is that the position is so important that you either have a quarterback or you don't, that it's worth taking the gamble. It's worth doing your research on a guy, arriving at the point that, really this is a second-round grade, but we need a quarterback, picking high, let's go for it.
Yeah.
With the hope that we get Josh Allen, or the hope that we get Joe Burrow, or the hope that we get Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
Somebody like that. And pay no attention to Carson Wentz and Marcus Mariota and Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold and all these quarterbacks that were taken high up that flamed out. Is it worth the gamble?
Yeah. I think it probably is, Mike. I mean, you look at the AFC right now in general, and you just mentioned, Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. I don't know who I'm forgetting, but just in the AFC, Lamar Jackson.
Soon to be Aaron Rodgers.
Right. Just in the AFC alone, look at that is a treasure trove of great young quarterbacks. Now, for every one of those great young quarterback stories, there are 2 that failed or 3 that failed. But if you get one, if you land on one, if you hit one, and you groom that guy properly, because there were a lot of questions about Josh Allen even after year 2 and 3. Mm-hmm. Is he ever going to be accurate? Is he ever there's a process there. So, no, I understand it. I understand why it makes sense. I understand why you take those gambles.
But if you're an AFC team, it's interesting you brought that up. You just got me thinking about this. If you're an AFC team, let's say you're like the Colts, right?
Uh-huh.
Do you draft a quarterback that high knowing that, let's say you hit on a guy and he emerges as a good, potentially maybe even great quarterback? Is he still going to be better than Mahomes? Is he going to be better than Burrow? Is he going to be better than Allen?
Right.
Is he going to be better than Herbert? Is he going to be better than Rodgers in the short term? My point being, would you be better off just saying, hey, let's build a really good football team and use that pick, and then try to get a good quarterback, but not necessarily swing for the fences for a great quarterback? Because even if you do hit, what's the odds that he's going to be the best quarterback, or the second or third or fourth best quarterback in the AFC? By the way, I left Trevor Lawrence out of there.
Right, Trevor Lawrence, left him out.
And Russell Wilson, of course, going to have a big comeback.
Yeah.
Let's ride.
Yeah, let's ride. I mean, I think you definitely, especially, and this is what is the beauty of the rookie, is that, the rookie contract is that, you're not paying that guy anything. So I can still draft that dude and still potentially build a really good roster around that guy. And I think that's the philosophy. And then you just got to hope that it's one game. It's not it's not the NHL or it's not the NBA where you got a 7-game series. Mm-hmm. It's one game. Can we beat that dude one game? Can we devise a game plan, or can we put something together to get that guy for one game? And let's face it, Philadelphia did it for a half this year in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
They just forgot to show up for the second half. Was like it does take 4 quarters. The details of the whole damn thing. Yeah. Anyhow, I'm looking forward. I know here in Denver, where you and I live, there's not a lot of, there's 5 draft picks and they don't start until the 3rd round, 67, 68. But for the most part, man, there's some excitement brewing in this draft, and to see where teams go and to see what teams do with these quarterbacks is it'll be interesting.
And you being, of course, a former 12th round draft pick, you
don't even start with me. Don't start with me.
10th round, folks.
I know. By the way,
there isn't a 10th round anymore.
But I would have been, because now even in 7 rounds, there's still more picks. So I still effectively, even as a 10th rounder, would have slid in as Mr. Irrelevant probably somewhere in there, which would have been a great story.
You would have loved that.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you would have embraced that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go Vandals. There you go.
Proud and true.
That's right. Became a tribe from the North Brave and Bold. Hey, guys, for everybody, thank you so much for being a part of our podcast. We really do appreciate you guys, and we'll be back with you next week.